Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Are you planning to sell your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Then you already know it's not just about finding a buyer, it's about actually protecting what you've actually built. That's where our sponsor, Adam Benedict, comes in. They're one of the leading premier M&A legal firms trusted by founders to simplify complex exits, protect value, and deliver results. Now, if you want a smart, smoother, and strategic exit, visit adambenedict.co.uk.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Every founder has a story, but most are forgettable. Now, today's guest knows exactly how to flip on its head, turning your story into your most powerful growth tool you've got. Now, I have the amazing Jeff Abracen. Jeff is a creative director. We're very good friends over on LinkedIn. And also he's a storytelling coach, and he's worked with multinational brands and has got a great podcast called the Disruptive Influence Podcast. Now, me and Jeff have probably been speaking on LinkedIn for probably the best part of 3 to 4 years. And what I love about him is that he sees things that most people don't see. You know, there's a lot of branding experts out there. There's a lot of storytelling experts. But I feel like when I speak to Jeff has something completely unique that most people don't have. What I find really fascinating about Jeff is he's able to turn founders' messy origin stories into something that's highly convertible, something that is highly authoritative, but more importantly, it grabs people's attention. And that is the currency that we need, that we're talking about today. So without further ado, Jeff, welcome to the show.
My man, it's so nice to see you again. I need you to come preface all of my client and potential client calls, if you would.
I'll make sure I get that done, my friend.
Oh my God, this would be such a show we could put on.
Absolutely.
Close rates would go through the roof. Thank you for that intro.
By the way, for you guys, before we get started, make sure that you got a pen and paper handy, because I know that Jeff is going to be giving you guys a storytelling masterclass. That's no joke. He's a wizard at this. But yeah, this has been a great jam. I mean, we've been trying to have a conversation like this for so many months, haven't we?
We have, but life sometimes has other plans. So here we are. We don't look back.
No, absolutely. And it's interesting. So for you guys that want to check out Jeff's podcast, by the way, he's had some amazing guests on the show, and some of the people that we share in his circle, we share in my circle. We share similar circles. We've had Jasmine Alec, and Jasmine's a great guy. We love Jasmine. We've had Chris. Do you have Chris Do on your podcast yet, by the way?
I've tried. And so I'm working up to it. I actually had a chance to talk to Chris personally in a group call in the community I'm in, which was great. And wow, that was worth the multi-replay. Let's just say that. So just dropped so much knowledge. Yeah. And afterwards, I had a chance to email back and forth with him a bit. I said, hey, Chris, you got to come on my show. All the cool kids are doing it. And he said, look, I have to ask what your view count is. I said, just tell me where it needs to be. So I'm still waiting for that answer of where it needs to be. And, someone who has so much demand for his time, demand for his presence, you have to make some hard decisions here and there. So that is a guest I would love to have on my show. But thanks for asking.
You're welcome. So, Chris, if you're listening to the show, which you might be, Jeff is now kindly requesting for your presence on the Disruptive Influence podcast. So, anyway, putting it out there. Anyway, so listen, let's kick off today because we've got a lot of great conversation, a lot of great content to share with our listeners. I want to quickly dive in, if I may. And what I'd love to know, because I mean, you're from the creative industry, similar to Chris, of course, but I want you to kind of tell our listeners what makes a story disruptive versus just, say, another pitch.
So I've actually come up with something recently that helps define that. Storytelling goes back to our roots, as most storytellers, most presentation coaches could tell you. Back in the day when we gathered around the fire, back when we even started to be able to communicate, right? And I had a thought this weekend. I was like, I'm always asking myself, how can I make my storytelling more disruptive? To me, disruptive storytelling is storytelling that stands out and converts. That's like the easiest way to kind of define it. And I said, you know what? I have to post a sentence that says, your kid never said, Daddy, can you read me another? You'll edit that. Daddy, can you read me another spreadsheet? So you never hear that. Storytelling is intrinsic to our DNA. Everything put into story is more memorable, more relatable. We feel it. We feel like we're there. So I've come up with something to explain that's called disruptive DNA. And what we look at if your story or your brand has disruptive DNA, the D is differentiation. Do you know your point of differentiation? N, do you have your narrative locked in? How are you going to market? And A is action, which is twofold. What are the actions? So as a story strategist here, we look at what are the actions you actually need to take to put your differentiation and your narrative into market? And what are the actions you want your audience or potential customers or actual customers to take to convert, to have influence, to do all the things you're trying to do, really to drive business from the storytelling perspective.
I love the way that you've kind of, I suppose, created like a mini framework out of the back of that, because I think you've got the differentiation, because it's very difficult to stand out from an industry, especially with a lot of our listeners that might be in industries where, it's so common, whether it be a CPA or an attorney or whatever it is. Generally, you'll know someone on your street, even on, what I mean, or multiple. And it's like, well, how do you differentiate from that? And I love the fact that you've mentioned the word narrative, because when I think of the word narrative, Jeff, I think of the word message or how I want to come across, right? If I'm not mistaken. And then when you think about action, I think about how to articulate that in a way that my audience understands. Would that be right in saying that?
It is. And all three parts kind of have to go together, right?
Yeah.
So back to the point of differentiation. When I talk disruption, when I talk influence, I'm talking about pattern breaking. As humans, our brains are always scanning and filtering. We're always looking for the safety and the threat. We are so good at spotting things that are novel, that break patterns, because that was the thing. That was the lions and the tigers in the trees. Now, it's probably just really clever advertising, really clever storytelling, really clever design. Yes, of course, there's still danger in the world. But when it comes to marketing messages and business building messages, we do notice the stuff that stands out for good or for bad. But the good stuff, really, we can feel it. The good stuff is really memorable. The good stuff makes us actually stop our scroll, as they say, the scroll stopping storytelling. So I'm always looking for pattern disruption. And the reason, you didn't ask this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. The reason I called my podcast Disruptive Influence is because the way I stood out in high school is I was branded on my report cards as a disruptive influence in class. So I said, let's make good on that. So podcasting didn't even exist then. there were radio shows. So I said, let's make good on that. So I've really come full circle in that category, in that area.
So I guess you got good grades at school then, or is that another conversation?
I actually did. So that's the funny part. That's the funny part that I mentioned in some conversations. Yes, I was a disruptive influence in class, which is just a fancy way of saying shit disturber or class clown.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in the hallways, but I was also an honor roll student. So, I worked hard and I played hard, you could say. And another fun thing is my background is in creative arts and illustration and design. So I was always an artist. I was always drawing. I actually drew the cover for my elementary school yearbook. My cover was voted as my high school yearbook, and my poster was voted for my graduating class of my illustration and design program. So I got the trifecta of yearbooks and graduating posters, which was a cool thing. So I was always dedicated to the craft of creative, but I love this spin of disruption and influence because it's true. If your business can actually stand out and actually get someone's attention is currency now.
Yes.
I think we can agree. Attention
Absolutely.
is currency now. If you can actually pattern break in a way that gets attention and holds it, right? You still have to hold it and continues a story that can actually lead to conversion. You're on to something. You're actually influencing outcomes.
One of the things that I often come across with a lot of founders that I have conversations with is that they try to articulate a story, right? Their feelings, their thoughts, and whatever it is. But from your perspective, when people start to intertwine it into their content, or maybe it goes on their website or whatever it might be, because you must have a really sharp eye when it comes to looking at why something doesn't convert or doesn't grab someone's attention. What would you say is the number one mistake that you see kills the impact?
Number one mistake is being like everyone else in your category. So earlier you mentioned the accountant. I think you said accountant. How does an accountant stand out? Get to that in a second. So blending in is your number one mistake. The other mistake is not asking yourself what's in it for them. Why would someone give an S?
Yep, that's true.
To know your story, to know what you do for them. How does it relate to the actual product or service or thing you can do for them?
Yeah,
people are I won't say only, fine, I said only, but people will always be more interested in themselves than they will be in anyone else in the entire world. Yes, we have children. Yes, we have spouses, all that, but it's natural to be more in tune and into yourself and your needs.
Yep.
We talk about the fact that any offer you would put out there, any message you put out there has to hit on all or some of the health, wealth, relationships, and happiness buckets.
Yep.
So like marketing, like brands like Nike that they probably market health, but they're probably marketing more happiness. I feel really cool having this product, what it represents, what this just do it mentality brings to me and makes me feel like. If I'm happier and I'm actually outside exercising, I am healthier. If I'm healthier, I'm happier. If I'm happier, I'm healthier, which probably leads to better relationships and probably more money, right? Yeah. Like it all is kind of intertwined. So when you understand that you need to bring someone something that serves them, something they're interested in, something they're missing, and sometimes it could just be purely entertainment, right? That's happiness right there. But if you can tie into that at a visceral level, you're already on to something. And I'll bring back that point of the accountant, right? You might say, well, how does an accountant stand out? I'll give you a side example. I remembered growing up, you would see real estate agent listings or the signs, for homes for sale on lawns. And to this day, it's that classic agent photo where it's straight on. Now there's real storytelling and pattern disruption and familiarity, the psychology of familiarity in that. when it's not just name and digits on a sign. You actually see this person's face over and over. You start getting familiar with them. You feel like you know them. That's a big part of having, like you and I met on LinkedIn, like we said, that's a big part of having a really good profile picture. That's a real big part of sharing your own photos, these kind of things. So I remember this one agent had a cowboy hat and his name was Boyd. And on the side, it said Cowboyd Johnson or whatever his last name is. And I'll never forget. I'm like, there's Cowboyd. So that just indicated to me, this guy's fun. This guy's a marketer. He could probably market my house better than anyone could. He's probably a little bit of a cowboy. So he'll probably do things and say things that other agents won't do or say. He's probably a lot of fun to deal with and has the confidence to say, I want to stand out. I will stand out. So just there, what did a cowboy hat have to do with real estate? Absolutely nothing. I'm buying the person. And just that one shot of a person in a cowboy hat compared to all the other signs on lawns that looked exactly the same, that stood out. And then his name just happened to work so well, where you added the cow onto Cowboyd. Amazing. So to this day, multi-years later, I remember him. No, I don't remember his last name. It doesn't matter. If I Googled Cowboyd, I'm finding his website.
I love that. I think that's a great example. You know, it's really interesting. I will see this a lot, especially because we hang out on LinkedIn a lot. It's our playground effectively. And it's just interesting how many profiles and how many websites that you come across. And it's basically a sales page of how good they are, how much experience someone's got, how credible they are. And there's just no dialogue in relation to being interested versus being interesting. Does that make sense?
It does. Tell me more. Tell me more about the angle that you're looking at that from.
I mean, when I was speaking to, I'll call him a prospect today, earlier on today, actually. And it was just really interesting. And, their big challenge was around, trying to figure out their client acquisition system, basically, in a nutshell. And I just said, I was like, well, I said, how many conversations do you get from LinkedIn and stuff like that? And he was, well, not that many. I went, well, probably the reason why you're not getting that many, buddy, is probably because it's basically a big, massive trip of ego on your part saying how good you are. Like, what do you want to do with that? Do you know what I'm saying?
So people like to know how good you are if that goodness helps them.
Exactly. But it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like, do you want to trying to grab someone? If you want to grab someone's attention, that's the wrong way to do it. Like when you're in school and we've both got 5-year-olds, for example. Your 5-year-old's always kind of, hey, daddy, like trying to get your attention to do something, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then on LinkedIn or in websites, like it's just the wrong way to do it. Like I am this and I am this and I am this and I am this. And I'm like, okay, where does it say? What does it say about the client? I solve X problems in
there you
X.
Go.
I mean,
okay,
come
so
on.
that's where you're going. Yes.
Yeah.
So the legacy of LinkedIn profiles is exactly that. Yeah. This is my work experience. Yep. This is what I've done. This is what I'm interested in. Yes. What works now is flipping that.
Yeah.
This is what you're interested in. This is the problems you have. I've seen it before. I've helped in this way. I can help you in this way. That is a much better way to approach a profile right now. And then you want to add the education, the entertainment, and the personality on top of it. Because you and I both know what is the number one thing that makes someone choose one vendor over another. It's if they like them.
Yeah.
Let's be very honest. People like doing business with people they like. So I really suggest your content, your personality, and how you show up helps with people liking you. But it's the wildest thing because I talk to people who prospects or current clients or past clients who just want to work with them again will say, Adam, can you do this? You're like, well, I've never done it. Adam, just figure it out. I know you can do it. I want to do this with you. Right? Because we want the path of least resistance. Yeah. If we've already curated that relationship, that trust, and that safety, remember before I said safety or threat, if someone is now a safe decision, it is another decision I don't have to make. I could just rest assured that that person is going to solve XYZ problem I have that day. So yes, you need to be interesting. You also need to be interested in that. Stop with the cold pitch slapping, as they call it. Stop with the trying to turn every conversation into here's the thing you can buy from me. Yeah. Actually be interested. And the best thing you can do going into a DM conversation, direct message conversation, or that first call, I think the best thing you can do, because you've probably done enough to get on that call, by the way, that's already a good step, and even to have a conversation started, the best thing you could do is truly ask people, maybe even without asking, but with your line of questioning, how can I help? What is actually your problem? And the best thing you could think is, how can I help them now? And who could I refer them to? Because if you're in that mindset, all the pressure's off. You're asking enough questions that you're actually trying to refer them to someone else. Now, some people might disagree with that. All I'm trying to do is get into a mindset of, and actually Chris Do taught me this one. So bringing up Chris again, I don't want this. I don't need this. I'm here to serve. Yep. And the idea is, if you just give yourself that little pep talk before a call that makes you not say, I need to sell them on this. I need to close right now. I need to send that Stripe link right now. Things are just going to go a lot better for you, and you're going to build a stronger relationship from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It kind of goes back to the principle of reciprocation. You know, the more that you come from a place of serve, come from a place of I can help you, or I can do this, or whatever it is, then human nature then wants to turn around and say, Jeff, thank you so much for helping. How can I repay the favor? It's just normal, natural behavior, human behavior, because otherwise you kind of feel bad, don't you? Do you know what I mean? But
I mean, the reciprocation is part of it, right? I mean, some people weaponize reciprocation.
That's
now.
True. That's true.
But the idea, again, just goes back to being helpful. I hope that most people at a certain point, right, after you've tested enough and gotten to know yourself enough over the years, I hope that most people are doing stuff that they'd almost do for free.
Yeah.
And in some cases do for free. But what I mean by that is they truly enjoy solving that person's problem. They actually, so in my case, I love when someone reaches out and says, I'm so good. Like literally this morning, I got off the phone with someone that I'm probably going to start working with, who found me through a worksheet I put out into the world after a group networking talk I put out into the world. And she saw the replay. She downloaded the worksheet. She called me, which is really cool. Like that shows that assets have value, which is really neat. Inbound's the dream, right?
Absolutely.
And she said, I'm really good at helping my clients tell their story. I'm having so much trouble telling mine. And I'm like, tell me more. I'm going to help you solve this. And I'm so excited that after we work together, she's going to come out with clarity. She's going to come out with confidence. Her shoulders are going to go down. Her chest is going to come up, just with how she's going to show up and saying, I know what I do and I know the difference it makes in the world. And I can actually talk about it in a way that not sounds legitimate, is legitimate, because it actually comes from passion and care and experience and all those good things that help someone choose to work with you.
I think you made a really valid point there. And again, that's probably one of the reasons why we get on so well, because one of the skill sets that I've picked up about you is that you're very good at articulating people's thought process. Because, what I find is that it's not so easy. Everyone's got their own story, right? But it's being able to articulate it in a way that correlates back to who's actually reading in the first place, right? And I feel like there's where a lot of missing tricks happen, rather than kind of turning into like a drama triangle, which a lot of people do. They use use the drama triangle, or a kind of a a personal journal about how bad their life is and whatever it is, but it really kind of doesn't make a prospect move forwards in their life. It just makes them feel bad. Do you see what I mean? I don't know if you've ever seen that.
So for the audience's sake and my own, what is a drama triangle?
So it might be like someone's had an experience and they're like, I don't know, it might be that they were on the train and, and they had a negative experience about their experience on a train or whatever it is. And then it made them feel bad. And, that to me is like a drama triangle. It's like you're sharing something which is completely irrelevant. Okay. Do you see what I mean? So there's got to be relevancy there. And most of it's not.
So that's a really interesting point. So this is when I'm helping a founder, executive, or team prepare a presentation, prepare to be on stage, manage the slides. I always tell them that every word has to serve its purpose. Every slide has to be there for a reason. So telling a story that has no lesson, no value, no moral, no learnings, which is lesson, nothing to take away or even to action on. What is the point? And you said a minute ago, you said like, or the way I interpreted it anyway, you said, how founders will come and not be able to articulate their story.
Yep.
The idea, not necessarily is that they might not be able to articulate it, is that sometimes they overlook the value of it. Because that's their lived experience for so many years that they've maybe gotten a little bit bored of the series, of the show, that is not as stimulating or interesting to them. When from the outside perspective, people would be very impressed to know a lot of the things you've done in your life and experienced. So that's one of the early things that we talk about in the DNA. What are your points of differentiation? And right now, the biggest points of differentiation are lived experience. Now where AI is taking away the value of pure play knowledge, pure play information, data, now it's really about how you show up. Now it's about human beings being human.
Yeah.
In all our flawed ways, in all our fun ways, in all our intuitive ways, in all our ways to connect, and all our ways to tell stories.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I just want to I want to pick up a point that you just made actually around the whole kind of not relevancy around storytelling, but the reasons why people don't use it enough. And from my perspective, and again, maybe you'll have some 2 cents to add to this, is there's a general belief system that ingrained into their DNA that they believe that their story has no relevancy, it has no value, that why should anyone care? So, and I'm sure these are belief systems and these are rhetoricals that tend to come up in conversations with you. How do you then challenge that status quo in order for them to kind of challenge that belief system and maybe flip it on its head?
So first we look at people they're impressed by. And what we're trying to do is just dig away and reveal that that person is a human too. And look how interesting you found that person's lunch. Look how interesting you found that person's hike. Look how impressed you are by that other person's degree. Look how inspired you are that they took a chance on XYZ. Why can't we do that for you? Then we start saying, well, what did you have for lunch today? Where did you get your degree? Why did you go into that? What was one of your biggest setbacks? What would make you the most proud and happy in your life to accomplish? What's the one thing that would make you the proudest? Like these sorts of things. We even look at what success might look like and we get into all those things. But what we want to do is uncover the things that people have either forgotten or haven't given personal value to themselves and remind people again how interesting they are. And sometimes when you see your own story played out before you, you say, that's a pretty good movie. So even coming in the way you did the intro, obviously there's some ego baked in and that kind of thing. Who doesn't like when someone is talking nicely about them? But I'm like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Adam, do you want to come on the road with me and repeat that? And preface every meeting with me, like I said. So it's this idea of helping people play their story back to them, hit the high notes and hit the things they can actually build on, to then tie it into why they are a great choice of accountant or business strategist or disruptive influence, these sorts of things.
One of the things that came into my mind, and probably one of the reasons why I feel like I hadn't shared my story till foot, was because of two things. One, the fear of being judged. And two, I was kind of, and again, I don't know if you can relate to this in any way, shape, or form, is comparing myself to other people. And it wasn't that I was trying to be perfect in any way, but I was trying to be someone that I shouldn't have been. And I suppose in a way you could say, well, Adam's, take the mask off, right? Be who you say you are. But I think that when I first got into the entrepreneurial game, I found that very difficult and very challenging. I would probably say, up to about 2 years ago, I would probably say that using storytelling in my content in particular, I found it very challenging for those reasons. Now I would probably say that I've now mastered an art of articulating, whether it be a personal experience, whether it be a screw up or whatever it is, but in a way, like you mentioned just a second ago, which is sharing with the audience my vulnerability and what my takeaways were, and if they can resonate with it. Does that make sense? And so how do you help, let's say, a lot of our listeners that maybe have that, whether it be the fear of being judged or comparison or analysis by paralysis type of thing, how do you help founders specifically to overcome those three things? Because I feel like those are probably the three biggest things that holds people back. What's your thoughts on that?
So those are things that are very natural. These aren't even things that society necessarily pushes into us. Over time, it does. I think that's just part of becoming self-aware. And the reason I say that with conviction is watching my daughter grow up. Now she's 5, and now she's understanding she's understanding the fear of being judged. Almost. There's certain things she'll be like, hey, don't look at me. You guys are laughing at me, that kind of thing. Thankfully, she still has that freedom of will to go out in a princess dress and dance around like no one's looking and all that kind of stuff, which I hope never goes away, by the way. But the idea is, so that's ingrained. So storytelling, number one, very unnatural for us to be like on a stage, on a podcast, in front of an audience. Why? Because we're defenseless. We've now been separated from the tribe. There could be the lions and tigers like we talked about. Standing out is not a natural thing. We are pack people. So that's number one. How do I separate from the pack? Number two is comparison so easy because now marketing comes in. We're always told that we are not enough. We don't have enough. We don't have the new model. We don't have the new luxury. So that is something that's, I don't even know if it's a Western society thing versus a global thing. But in the countries that have, we're told you need to have more.
Yeah.
So we're always, instead of looking back and say, look how far I've come. Am I more informed than yesterday? Can I do one more push-up than yesterday? Mm-hmm. Look at the business, the opportunities, the things I've learned, even through failure. What can I go back on and say, wow, look at the wealth of information that even those failures have brought me. I have a depth of character now, resilience, storytelling, information. Now, this is assuming you're learning from your mistakes and paying attention. And this is also assuming you're on this trajectory to become the best person you can be, or just have a really good time doing it. So rewinding, very natural to feel timid around storytelling. Mm-hmm. It's not, now it is something that's more trained, but people don't necessarily put in the reps. And again, you're very defenseless. It's very easy. I think, again, it's very much in our psyche, the fear of judgment. But now we have a very critical society, critical world, especially in the last 25 years with the advent of the internet, keyboard warriors, the fact that you can't even go to a club anymore. So back in my day, however, that dates me, when we went out to a bar or a restaurant, this and that, there might have been a few flash cameras that people would actually like, disposables. And yes, the early stage of digital cameras that here and there you might see the photos on Facebook, this and that. Yeah. Now people are live streaming at the club, at the ball game, at the concert. You saw what happened, right? If Coldplay, the whole Coldplay and CEO concert fiasco recently, no one would have known anything if there wasn't a zillion phones there with access to the internet to post this for another zillion people to see. So that is real. Like people might make fun of us for this conversation. Too bad, so sad. We're putting ourselves out there anyway. So how do I tell people to get over that? Number one is reframe it. Reframe the nerves as excitement and as I get to. I actually get to be on this podcast. I actually get to be on this stage. And I'm not nervous. I'm excited because they're very, very similar things. Mm-hmm. But then you have to put in the reps where the fear actually turns into actual excitement because you're prepared. Mm-hmm. So now I'm just talking about storytelling and this kind of thing. Maybe I'm stretching too much to the stage angle of things. And when I say stage, I'm talking about addressing your company. I'm talking about, raising your hand in a group or a group call. I'm talking about actually being on a stage and all the things related that single you out. If you put yourself in the mind frame of, I have value, I am interesting, what I say can actually help people. You start saying, this is my duty. This is my actual duty to go out there and say the things I need to say and share the information I need to share. The other thing I remind them is facts, F-A-C-T-S. Sometimes facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah.
And we're always selling. Might not be a financial transaction. We're always selling. And yes, there's a subset of the population who needs the facts. And in any deal and anything, you need the facts.
Of course.
But if you have sold over hearts and minds, heart will win over mind. The cognitive dissonance will be strong, my friends. People will find every excuse to do business with you if they feel like they should do business with you. They will find every excuse to go the extra mile to buy that thing you're selling if they feel like it's going to change them in a way that's significant in terms of health, wealth, happiness, relationships, and again, a general sense of, wow, that feels really good. I really love the story they're telling me. I feel it in my heart. Therefore, I feel it in my mind.
It was interesting. As you were speaking halfway through that, it kind of reminded me of Yoda from Star Wars, just the way that you articulate.
I'm
sorry, big Star Wars fan here.
You're not baiting me into saying it backwards now.
Love that. Some good stuff. By the way, for you guys that are listening in, I hope that, number one, you're taking notes. But number two, more importantly, Jeff is giving a real masterclass on how to really kind of, again, share and articulate your thoughts, your experiences, your screw-ups, and, being able to use that as, not weaponize it, but use it in a way that creates connection, creates relationships, creates attention and influence. Very key ingredients. So
you actually reminded me. Let's talk about how we can make this applicable.
Yeah.
And it's 3 C's. It's contrast, connection, and conversion.
Love that.
So the first thing is you want to contrast. You want to stand out. If you know everyone that day is going to wear white, you're going to wear a color.
Black
metaphorically or not, right?
That's me.
But if every real estate sign is a person with their arms crossed smiling, you're going to put on the cowboy hat.
Yep.
Right? So it's not up to make ourselves fools. And again, it's not just about what you wear. It is how you are coming across. How am I contrasting? How am I telling the story different from another person or company in that category? That's number one. And the beauty about different categories is you can steal inspiration from other category dominators that have differentiated themselves in this category and take some of that inspiration for how you can pattern break, which is a fancy way of saying contrast. So if your accountant example earlier, if accountants are usually cold, I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying let's just pretend. Yeah. Pretend the experience of the customer shopping for an accountant. Oh, they're usually very cold. They're by the numbers. They're by the books. They're not interesting.
Yeah.
And then you find the one that actually cracks a few jokes. You actually find the one who talks about accounting terms in terms you can actually understand and feel. You find the one that says not having your cappuccino at Starbucks every day, it's not going to change your life. Go for it, right? Sometimes you just want to hear what you need to hear. But my point is, if they actually approach something from a different way that most accountants would approach storytelling, branding, marketing, just showing up in the room, you will start to find your tribe.
Yeah.
The other thing there, again, so contrast, we want to stand out.
Yep.
Then we want to connect. There's a couple of angles of connection. One is human connection.
Yep.
Do I actually tell a story in a way that the audience and the potential customer, doesn't matter, the people, this is all people. Do I tell a story in a way that people actually connect with?
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm not an actor, just a guy living with prostate cancer. My wife and I face each day head on. We asked my doctor about Xtandi enzalutamide.
Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache.
Visit Xtandi.com to watch my story.
The greatest short story ever. Baby shoes for sale, never worn. How much feeling do you have from those 6 words?
Not really that much, really. In all honesty, I don't.
Fine. Failed experiment.
Darn it, we should have rehearsed that one, ladies and gents.
Doesn't matter. The point is, it doesn't take a lot to tell a story. So the reason I brought that up is because you can tell a deep story in very few words. Why that award-winning short story was so compelling is it painted a picture. When I said baby shoes for sale, what did you picture?
I was thinking a newborn baby with some shoes on. Nothing else.
Or not on, because the shoes are for sale.
Exactly.
So we're going to picture it in different ways. We're going to picture those baby shoes for sale, right?
Sure.
And then someone might see baby shoes. Someone might see a for sale sign. Someone might see it as a Facebook ad. Everyone's going to picture it a little bit differently. The color, the background, the texture. Because I know that's an old exercise, I pictured in black and white for some reason. But when you add the never worn, what does that start meaning to you? Now, because maybe right now we're in such a hyper retail world that you're like, cool, they just had extras.
Yeah.
When that story came out, that was like, oh my God, what happened to the baby? To some people, that's what happened to the baby. To some people like you didn't have the reaction. You might have just said, cool, the baby outgrew them before they needed them. Oh, maybe they got a gift and they were extra. So all I'm saying here is that words have the power to connect and paint a picture. The things you say and do should show that you have enough insight into your audience that you're saying, wow, this person can connect with me. on a emotional level, on an intellectual level. And you can also connect the things you're saying to buying triggers. We can talk about that another time. So you really want to try to connect. You're a person. You want to try to connect with people. Storytelling is a very good way to connect. And you talked earlier about vulnerability. Now, I'm not sure the accountant wants to say, last week I screwed up and it cost my client $500,000. Here's what I learned from it. And the reason I talk about that is like, you have to be careful with how vulnerable you are.
Well, I don't know if that's vulnerability versus stupidity.
Fine, but the idea is still sharing mistakes is being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And what I'm saying by that is, and where I'm getting at, and the point of this is people worry about oversharing.
Yeah.
So they see online, again, coaches will say, you have to be vulnerable. How much of my story can I share? And you found the muscle to start sharing your stories. But there is a limit. But the point is, if the accountant said, hey, I was just like you when I started my business. Now, maybe a little different because they know numbers, but I was just like you. I was nervous. I had to get all these things in order. I wasn't sure how to market myself. I, yes, had the upper hand because I knew how to account for the things that were coming in and going out, but the rest I didn't know anything about. In the same way, I'm a trained accountant that I don't know about branding, sales, marketing. These are not my domains. Is the same way I'm going to hold your hand when you are good at sales, marketing, or whatever business you're in. I'll hold your hand when it comes to the numbers.
Love that.
And already you say, this person gets it. They have voids in their experience and expertise. I have voids in my experience and expertise. Wow, I am an expert at what I do. Wow, they're an expert at what they do. They get me. There's connection right there. And then conversion is very simply, if you get those first two C's right, conversion is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
We're not going to go in today all the things and the mechanisms to make it easier for someone to actually transact with you. But if you actually contrast, you stand out, you connect with people, conversion is going to happen.
Yeah.
Despite you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Actually, what's really interesting, and again, just from experience in using storytelling more in my own content, what I've found is that it actually makes it a lot easier that if you are on, say, a sales call, for example, or someone has approached you because they connect and relate to what you've put out there into the world, it actually makes it a lot easier, and they're prepared to pay whatever it is that they need to pay for in order to invest in what you have on offer, if that makes sense. There's less sales objectives, there's less friction, and it just makes conversations just like off the tongue. Does that make sense?
It does. Did you mean to say sales objections?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Again, when you have someone's trust, when you could use a story of, hey, Adam, my last client had the same problem. Here's how we tackled it. And look at them now.
Yeah.
It changes the game. Someone else is doing the selling for you. Right? And again, I remember learning about car salesmen. And the way they would answer questions, or the way they would be trained to answer questions, was they would say, hey, is this a reliable car? Or they would be asked that, and they would say, no one's ever brought one back. Right? Or they would say, hey, what's the trunk size like? Actually, my client from 2 months ago just came in. They said they went on a camping trip with 4 suitcases, 2 bicycles, and a barbecue. And they still had room. Isn't that a much greater picture than it's 4 by 12?
Yeah.
Or it's however many cubic feet or liters or this and that.
Sure.
Facts tell, stories sell.
Yep.
So not only have you told a story that makes someone see themselves in this situation, the other people have done the selling for you. Your previous client just did the selling for you. That family who went on that camping vacation and packed bikes and barbecues just sold that car for you.
Yeah.
Or at least the trunk size.
Yeah. Love that. So now I'm conscientious because I know we're coming towards the end of our interview, and I know that we could probably speak for many hours on this given subject. And, I feel like maybe we'll probably do take 2 sometime down the line or whatever it is. But first of all, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? We've gone through some frameworks. We've gone through some methodologies that you've created. And what I love about the way that our conversations is that it's very simple to implement what we've actually spoken about. And that's what I love about you is that you've taken something which sounds complicated, but actually you've made it super simple. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And thank you for recognizing that, right? Anything that's not simple is just not going to get done. Like, that's just my perspective on it. People have enough trouble with running, let's say, their business, to then worry about getting even more complicated about simplifying how they talk about their business. So we don't need to add any more complication. We just have to put people through the realization and the repetitions to become better storytellers.
And that's a good wrap up, ladies and gents, because I feel like, and again, I want to add my last 2 cents to what Jeff has just said, is that complexity kills, but simplicity sells.
Hey, look at that.
Look at that, right? So you like that for storytelling, ladies and gents, you see. I have my own little rhymes, you see. But anyway, listen, Jeff, it's been a great hangout. So just wanted to say again, greatly appreciate your time today. So thank you so much. And it's been a great jam, my friend.
Thank you. I definitely want to do part 2, and I want to see how you get on. Tell me before we wrap up, how did you flex your storytelling muscle, and what's been working for you?
I think from my perspective is I've been experimenting. So I'm like a little scientist right now, and I've been experimenting what's worked and what's not worked. And we both hang out on LinkedIn a lot, don't we? And we see a lot of things that's happening or what's not happening, or let's turn my head away and that's, oh God, no. But here's the thing that I've observed, and just again, I'm just sharing what's working for me, and not necessarily it must be the kind of like the rule of thumb, but I would share with the audience from my perspective that what's really working well is that when I put out educational based content, it doesn't land as well. However, if I add a storytelling angle in, that's when it really creates traction. Now, we'll also know that here on LinkedIn, for example, is that everyone's impressions down, is that reach is down. Like literally the algorithm is going through some episode, if you want to call it that, we'll just put it to that. But what's really interesting is that even though my impressions have gone down, Jeff, my engagement has gone up. My reactions have gone up. And the reason for that is because one thing that I've experimented with is using that storytelling angle, using how I have done this, or how I screwed up, or how my client has experienced this, or how we did this. So it's kind of like you're taking someone on a journey, right? You're taking someone on a journey and you're going through the shit that they've gone through, the quicksand or whatever it is, whether it be my personal stuff or whatever it is. And then how do we fix it? Does anyone else want the same result? That's how I feel.
So you just touched on like the 2-3 best hooks for any, these 6 probably best words. I don't even use them enough, but I might start.
There you go.
How I, how we, how you. And you can condense that to how I and how you. The we is just nice if it was a group. But how I and how we and how you are amazing ways to start a story. Or again, we grab the attention, because now I've just said, whoa, there's value there.
Yep.
The follow-up has to be something good that I'm interested in. So that has got my attention. Then the story comes in.
Yep.
So the differentiator, the contrasters, how I closed 60 clients in 20 days, and you can too. Now, again, we've got to be careful not to be too clickbaity. How I learned the biggest lesson ever out of the biggest failure of my life, like whatever it is. More specifics are actually better. Numbers and specifics are better.
Yep.
Then you tell a story. The story is going to connect. It's going to impart the facts and make people feel like they were there. Again, facts tell, stories sell.
Absolutely.
It's going to impart the facts in a way that's actually digestible and paints a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're smart, you're going to have a follow-up for either a conversation there, an extra resource, a phone call, whatever it is. Because, right, like we're not necessarily on LinkedIn for fun, even though most of the time I'm just having fun. And the other trick I would tell everyone was whoever stayed for this bonus extra little question, because as we started to wrap up, I'm sure people press stop. So you gotta stay to the end of the story, folks.
Absolutely.
One of the greatest sentences, and I'll leave you with this, that you can start any phone call, any presentation with, any podcast appearance, is let me tell you a story. I'm done here today, Adam. My job is
I love
done
that
today.
Absolutely. Listen, this has been a great jam. For you guys that have been listening in, I hope that we met your expectations, number one, but also we were able to maybe demystify some of your storytelling challenges, should we say? Because I think that what I loved about this conversation is, yes, it's casual. Yes, it's two mates hanging out. But more importantly, I feel like it's been very topic-based, that practical takeaways that you can go away with and maybe implement some of the ideas, frameworks, and just kind of insights that we've discussed. So from me and Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in. And just before we go as well, if you haven't already done so, and you'd like to, again, need some help with regards to your storytelling, feel free to reach out to Jeff, and he's over on LinkedIn. We'll put all his we'll put the show description notes below, but we'll also put his social media links below as well, that you can reach out, connect with him. Make sure that you mention the podcast, of course, and I'm sure that in Toucan, he will be able to help you in your storytelling.
Absolutely. And if anyone wants, I actually made a cheat sheet of pretty much everything we talked about today. So if you want to grab that, come see me on LinkedIn. We have fun out there, and I'll even maybe put you in a group chat with Adam and I. So
Holy
the first 10 people, no, I'm just kidding. But
my phone's just going to be like a Christmas tree. Bing, 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 bing.
I actually put together a worksheet after a talk I did recently on disruptive storytelling. It was called Disruptive Storytelling in the Age of Influence. So I did the companion worksheet, and people have been getting a lot of value out of that. So happy to send that out to any of Adam's listeners.
Super, super. Listen, guys, hope you've enjoyed today. And from me and Jeff, hope you're well. And we'll see you in the next Business Strategist. Take care. Speak soon. Cheers now.